into your seats because I went all the way to the Pentagon with this information. Now, before we get started, I want to mention that I am a remote viewer, which means that I am able to get into a deep state of trance meditation, leave my body, and go wherever it is I want to go. And today, that is exactly what I did to deep dive into what these UFO drones really are, what the purpose of them is, and what we could potentially expect to see for 2025. Lots of great information, and as always, take it or leave it. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome on in. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with other people who love to question the narrative we are fed. And without further ado, let's just deep dive into it. Now, first of all, let's talk about the facts, right? Like, what is really going on? What do we know right now? What are we being fed within the mainstream narrative? So a couple of things. There have been strange lights seen, especially at night, in New Jersey specifically, but now it's sort of spreading to New York, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And I have no doubt that this is going to continue to spread. Now, specifically, these strange lights have been seen at night. They've been hovering over residential and even sort of more sensitive areas like military sites. And then they've also been seen flying in groups as well. This is usually not just a one-off incident. There's usually multiple of these sort of flying light-up type of things going on. And then also people have been reporting them as around the size of a car, which is pretty big, especially if you're seeing it, 50 to 100 feet away. And then the last sort of fact I have here for you, I mean, there's not much going on as far as facts, okay? So both local and FBI authorities are investigating, but neither one of them are really saying too much. For the most part, they're saying, hey, it's not military, and it doesn't seem like it's a threat, so yeah, don't worry about it. So that's sort of where we're at with the mainstream information. It's not a whole lot, but that's what remote viewing is really, really good for. Let's really deep dive and see what's going on. So I'm going to go over specifically what I remote viewed. And I guess before I go through the information, and it's very clear sort of bullet points of information, I want to just describe to you my experience because it was really fascinating. So when you remote view, either you are given a blind target from someone else, or in my case, most of my remote viewing, I give myself the target. So, for example, this would be, what's going on with these UFO drones? What exactly are they? And when I have an intention or a target in mind, I will just show up at that place, at that location. But I have no idea what to expect, and I have no real prior attachment or knowledge to where I'm going to go or what I'm going to experience. So in this case, when I sat down today, just about an hour ago, to deep dive into this information, immediately I'm going over to New Jersey, and there's a military base there, and they have sort of an underground facility in this military base. I've definitely never been to this military base before, so it was brand new to me. When I arrived, what was really fascinating was there were other remote viewers there, probably other people just like me who are open-minded and curious. It didn't seem that they were from a specific group or had any other intention other than just curiosity. So I went to this base, and this is where I saw, and we're going to get into some of the other things that I saw specifically, but I want to give you my process. So I saw that this is where the machines are being held. So I guess I'm going to give away a bunch of stuff in my process, but let me just say it is not intelligent. There was no intelligent, quote unquote, intelligent life behind these machines. It was very clearly military or secret ops that were operating these machines. I also didn't see anyone manning the craft on site, if that makes sense. So they were unmanned craft or vehicles. And when I went to this New Jersey military base underground, this is where the operations were, and this is where a lot of them are being deployed from, is what I saw. Not all of them, of course, because now they're cropping up in other places, but essentially there's a warehouse underground with a large amount of these devices, and we're going to get into what they are and what the intention is and why they're doing this. But definitely not extraterrestrial in origin. That was extremely clear right off the hop. And so I actually saw, let's call them like drone operators, and they were operating out of the New Jersey base. So then, of course, I wanted to deep dive and say, okay, well, what are they? Why are they deploying them? Like, what's the purpose? And I couldn't get any answers directly from the New Jersey military base. And part of me initially thought that maybe it was not, how do I say this? Not necessarily sealed information, but it was definitely, sometimes I get blocked on receiving information. And sometimes it's because on their end, they've really protected it. And other times it's because humanity's just not meant to know. And so I'm blocked from receiving it. So I thought that initially it was maybe a block or I wasn't able to penetrate the information. Turns out the New Jersey military base didn't have the information. It actually seems like even the drone operators, they have they're not told anything. They have no idea why they're even operating these drones. They're not given sort of the information behind the operation. So then I said, okay, well, take me to where I need to go to better understand why this is happening, why they are deploying these things. And so then that's when I went over to the Pentagon, which obviously completely different location. And it's funny enough, I've never actually remote viewed the Pentagon. And so I was going into the building, and before I did, I really cloaked myself because I was like, all right, the last thing I want is to be recognized or not recognized, but noticed as a remote viewer in the Pentagon. And I don't know what kind of security they have. I've never been there in my remote body. So anyway, I show up, I'm definitely cloaked. Luckily, I wasn't spotted. It wasn't a big deal. And I went to this room, and it actually looks like, you know, those like military movies where, you know, code red and like we have to make a decision, and it's a big room and there's big screens and then there's a table and there's all these like important looking military men that are sitting around the table and they're discussing sort of an operation. That was almost exactly what I saw inside the Pentagon. And so I'm thinking, it's bullshit that they're saying they don't know what's going on. You know, it's very clear that they know exactly what's going on. And it felt like the decisions were coming from that room, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then I went even deeper and I said, okay, well, who's really behind this? And like, what is their intention? And we're gonna talk about that with some of the main bullet points that I picked up on. And then I went to a different place altogether, which was essentially the shadow government base. You could call it maybe a military base, but sort of where they operate from. So it was so fascinating how I went from, you know, 3 different layers to try and get this information. And I wanted to just explain my process because, like I said, I don't have any sort of attachment or expectation when it comes to remote viewing. So here's what I saw. Here are the sort of the things that I picked up on. So like I mentioned, it is definitely a remotely operated terrestrial aircraft, all right? It was very clearly not extraterrestrial, clearly linked to military or secret ops military, deployed from military bases, from US military bases. I do want to mention that one of the questions I asked was, why New Jersey? Like I said, New Jersey, that military base wasn't able to tell me anything. But when I went to the Pentagon, it was clear. So this technology, these giant drones, apparently they created them quite a long time ago. So they're considered old tech or old technology. And they were all sort of stationed. These giant drones were stationed on the East Coast. That was essentially the majority of why they were there in particular, was because they were meant for different operations overseas. I didn't really pick up on what operations they were sort of planning. But that specifically, it was supposed to be like they were all just sort of stationed on the East Coast for the very purpose of, if they needed them, they could easily deploy them overseas. So that's sort of why New Jersey, because I was like, what is really going on in New Jersey? So that's why sort of the East Coast in particular. And then when I sort of probed this drone, there was a device, or there is a device that's strapped to some of them, not all of them. It almost seems like there's sort of different styles or different versions of them. But usually if there's like a pod that goes out, there will be one of them in the pod that has this, it just looked like a metal box. And what I picked up on is that it's some sort of radar or some sort of scanner. And I really didn't understand why they had a radar device or what necessarily they were scanning, but we'll talk about sort of the intentions behind it in a little bit. Yeah, like I said, some of them have a scanning device attached. And then, so they're repurposing old technology. Now, let's get to the why, right? I think everyone wants to know, why is this really happening? There's two reasons. One is that they are testing out this technology. And I don't think it's the drone technology that they're testing out. They're really testing out whatever this radar device is. Once again, I wasn't able to pick up on what this thing was or why it was strapped to a drone. But the real reason, the real reason that the secret military operations, whatever, are deploying these drones at nighttime is to test the public response. This is the reason. And I was able to deep dive, and this is the information that I picked up from the shadow government side of why this is all going on. It's like the shadow government is giving their instructions to the Pentagon, and the Pentagon is instructing these military bases around the US to deploy this old technology. And so they're testing out the public response to something like this. Is it going to be fear? Is it going to be chaos? Is it going to be mayhem? How are we going to control the narrative around this? How is the media going to play into this? It's essentially an experiment right now. So this is a test, okay? This isn't the end goal. And that really prompts me to question, what is their end goal? If this is a test, what are they testing? What is it for? And so what was really interesting is that what I picked up on, especially from the shadow government, was that it's a blind test before the Trump administration. It was really important that they did this before the Trump administration, which kind of confused me. I didn't really understand why. And then the information that came through was they are trying to undermine, and that's a very key word that came through. They're trying to undermine the new administration. And thank you so much, guys, for the super chats. I appreciate that. So they're attempting to undermine the new administration. Right now, they're just testing the public response. They're testing what they're able to do with these things. It just seems like these drones are sort of old or out of commission, and they're just utilizing them for their next tactic. And we've talked about this quite a few times now, especially in 2024. They are looking for their next agenda, their next conspiracy, their next thing to deploy in order to affect the masses in a negative way, especially in a fear-based way. And so specifically, it looked like they're doing this test in order to undermine the new administration. And so it looks like they are going to be reappearing in 2025. So this is really important information at this time. If all of us could kind of be like insiders within this information, and then in 2025, when it continues to happen. So really what I saw was things are going to kind of calm down, right? There's like a little bit of a frenzy happening right now. It seems like nearing the end of this month, beginning of January, things are going to calm down a little bit. We're not going to hear as much about it. We're not going to see all of the sightings and the videos that we're seeing right now. And then there's going to be a really massive push, and it may not be the same drones. It may be Project Bluebeam. It may be holographs. It may be, and actually, it's funny enough, one of the things that I asked in my remote viewing was, if you're trying to test the public and potentially stage, okay, this is important, potentially stage a false alien invasion, why wouldn't you use your reverse engineered UFO craft? Because if you've been with me for a while, you know that I have remote viewed and seen, especially in their military bases, UFOs and crafts that look like extraterrestrial technology that are not. They're military, but they're using all of the same technology that spacecrafts use. And so I asked, why wouldn't you just use that instead? You're using these old school clunky drones. There's two reasons for that. One is they don't have enough of the spacecraft or the UFO, like the reverse engineered UFO technology craft. They don't have enough of them to create the effect that they want to create, which is multiple. There's multiple. There's a lot of them. It's not just one. It's just not just a one-off. And then the second thing, what was the second thing? Hold on. Oh, yeah. So the whole point of undermining the Trump administration is Trump doesn't know what's going on. If and when they do, I don't know what they're really testing for, I guess, to see the reaction. But if they're like, yeah, okay, we're going to go ahead with this staged or false alien invasion, in the Trump administration, either Trump is going to get blamed, he's not going to be let in on the information. It looks military, but the military claiming it's not them. So they're trying to sort of create a little bit of confusion, a little bit of mistrust within the government, and this is why they're using something that it definitely doesn't look extraterrestrial in origin, but once again, when I remote viewed it, it's very clearly not intelligent life that's in control of this craft. Okay, so this is what I want you to know. Moving into 2025, they are gearing up for this plan, for this false alien invasion. And as I've mentioned before, now on December 30th, I'm going to do my 2025 prediction video. I do a prediction video every year. And so these are all things that I'm going to be looking into, including solar flare event and economic transitions and things like that. So yeah, this is just one of the things that I'm so curious about is, how is this going to affect humanity? Now, at the end of the day, what I've sort of seen from false alien invasion remote viewing before is that there is going to be a lot of fear created around it, but at the same time, there's going to be a mass awakening that happens within the population. As always, the elites are trying to gain access to control from the people through fear tactics. And as always, those control and fear tactics are going to backfire and actually create more of an awakening than what they anticipated and expected, which is obviously, that's a good thing. So now that you're informed, please watch out for this. They should escalate, and then sort of the sightings will slow down. And then it seems like within 2025, and I'm thinking the first 6 months of 2025, we are going to see some other version of that, which either could be with the same drones, or it could be with something that looks a little bit more futuristic. So please keep that in mind. If you are interested in extraterrestrials and you want to know what they have to say about humans, humanity, and the future, our fate, all right, then check out my monthly Galactic Federation summits. We just had an epic one on December 11th. That would be season 2024, episode 12. And I even remote viewed. I spoke to the Ascended Master Jesus. I don't know why, I just felt like I really needed to call him in. And that was a wild experience, very wild experience. So if you want to get a little message from Jesus and some of our extraterrestrial friends, go check that out. Coming up on December 21st, I've got an incredible event called the Cosmic Gateway, and that is where we cut ties with 2024, heal our wounds from 2024, and really anchor in manifestations for 2025. All right, guys? So that's it. All of my other remote viewing and really epic channels are all on my website, stuff that I just don't feel comfortable putting on YouTube. But of course, if you don't want to head over to my website, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I am sending you guys so much love. Keep up the good work. Keep your mind sharp. Question everything. What a wild time to be alive. Bye for now.